Refusal Criteria. Chapter 1. Confused Rumblings. The cable news was relegated to a low, inaudible rumble, with snide, smirking pundits jousting for position atop elephants and asses. They seemed like madmen lecturing from a park bench to disinterested squirrels. Lucidity was a distant memory that he could barely process through the fog, like a dream that fades upon awakening, with flashes of blurry images approaching and passing like strangers on a sidewalk. Had the events of the past few days really happened? Or would he awake in a sweaty sigh of relief that this had all been a terrible dream? If it was, all he would need to do was let his heart slow down, take a few deep breaths, and fill his mind with happier thoughts. He knew it was not a dream. This was his reality now, his doing. He was getting what he deserved. He was reaping what he had sown. Or was it sowed? He had many times fallen to his knees and prayed to go back in time just a few days so he could change the course of events that had brought him to this hotel room floor. Inevitably, his eyes would open again and realize that what was done was done. Sleep had provided a warm escape, followed by a jolt of reality upon waking. The cruel ebb and flow between sleep and awake had consumed his existence since it had happened. The recognition came in mercifully small doses, but with a tsunami of pressure pounding in his head, relieved only by the next morsel of sweet slumber. Only a stone's throw away, the hotel owner came into the office and found that his latest problem tenant had still not been seen. This was what he had feared when he went to bed the night before, and as he sipped his chai tea at the breakfast table this morning. His usual problem tenants generally checked in to party into the night, leaving sleepless guests and frustrated maids. Not this guy. He had been as quiet as a mouse and had not emerged from his room for 3 days. At check-in, he looked as if he had not slept in a year. "How long will you be staying with us?" "I don't know. I just want to get some sleep." Then he slothed to his room, slid his card, and disappeared through the door. Room 127 was perfectly visible from the front desk, and after the morning of the second day, the owner had every shift keep an eye on that door. He had known of people under extreme exhaustion sleeping for 24 hours, but as 24 turned to 48, he feared something much more serious. On the afternoon of the third day, the owner did not want to turn over to the night shift and go home without at least hearing the tenant's voice. He called the room repeatedly for hours and never got an answer. Byron knew that a suicide would bring at least 3 squad cars and that they would sit there for hours. Beacons or no beacons, wary travelers pulling off the highway would be unlikely to pull in and price a room with something serious enough to draw 3 or 4 squad cars to the scene. Byron decided to enter the room the next morning around 10 a.m. Most of his clients pulled in between 4 p.m. and 9, so if he found the body at 10 a.m., he would likely be rid of the police by 2. In desperation, Byron called room 127 one more time and let the phone ring off the hook, but to no avail. He knew that dead men don't answer phones. It was time to take the long walk to 127, which was one that he did not rush. He looked down at the door handle and the "Do Not Disturb" sign. Do not disturb? Or perhaps, rest in peace, he wondered. Byron beat on the door and called, "Mr. Bine, are you all right?" repeatedly to a crescendo. Finally, he swiped the card, watched the light turn green, and opened the door slightly to avoid the full stench of death. He was surprised that the chain was not on. "Mr. Bine?" he asked through the cracked door several times. When he summoned his resolve, he pushed the door open fully and stepped through in one long stride. Now standing fully inside the room, Byron saw the man at the foot of the king bed on his knees facing a blank spot on the wall next to the television. The man's back was to Byron, but he appeared to be at least as alive as he was at check-in. "Mr. Bine?" he asked as he tentatively stepped past him to see his face. The man's eyes were open, swollen, and welled with water. Byron's eyes darted from the tenant to the wall several times. "Mr. Bine?" No response. Richey Bines had finished his most recent prayer for forgiveness and was swimming in the thoughts gushing through his mind when he felt a touch on his shoulder. He looked up to see the man from the front desk looking down at him. He was moving his lips, but all Richey could hear through the deafening silence was a muffled narrative that he could not understand. Richey closed his eyes and focused with all his might. "Mr. Bine?" Mr. Bine, are you all right? Yes, Richey replied in a soft voice. We have been calling you for days. Why won't you answer the phone? After I checked in last night, I must have fallen asleep and not heard it. Is there a problem? The situation suddenly became all too obvious to Byron, and anger overtook his mild manner. Get out! Get out of my hotel. I don't know what kind of drugs you are taking, but it will not be tolerated at this hotel. Mr. Bine, do you understand me? Richey stared in sleepy disbelief at this instantaneous metamorphosis from concern to outrage. Richey had not done any drugs except alcohol since smoking weed at his senior party 20 years before. For some reason, nobody advised him that weed does not complement 9 solo cups of Natty Light from a warm keg. He became violently ill and never experimented with such curiosities again. Yes, I understand. Byron stomped from the room and executed a failed attempt to slam a cylinder spring door. The door bounded off of the compressed air in the cylinder and sprang back open, only to slowly come to a gentle, unsatisfying close. Richey, still on his knees with his neck wrenched to the closed door, slowly rotated his head back to the wall. He sat trying to figure out what just happened and if it was even real. Why did that man come in here and shout at me? What did he say? A new wave of weary surged over him. He struggled to his feet and took several unsteady steps to the ruffled bed and collapsed onto it.